So, for today's episode of the Path Monk Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest. I have the co-founder of Respona, and he's talking with Farzad Rashini today, who is gonna, also heading up marketing, in his career quite a bit. So we're gonna be, learning about what he's doing, and his perspective on digital marketing and growth. So, Farzad, welcome to the show.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. Tell us, a little bit about the company. What is it? What is it all about?
Of course. So Respona is an all-in-one, I would say, digital PR and link building solution. It's built for businesses, somewhat like Pathmonk, to be able to get the word out about their product and services, predominantly by building relationships with bloggers and journalists in their space, and in order to get backlinks to your website, improve your SEO, and also get an overall, I would say, awareness, brand awareness across the board.
Very cool. I mean, a lot of people are obviously, trying to build backlinks. Could you maybe tell us, like, in a couple of steps, like, what would they do if they use your platform and services?
Sure. So what Respond, what we basically do to take a comprehensive approach when it comes to link building. So link building, unfortunately, in the recent years has had a lot of bad negative connotation around it. And that's been predominantly because marketers ruin everything. So what link building means to us is basically first actually start with creating quality content. So you put together pieces of educational content on your site that users across the user journey would potentially be looking for. And as Google getting more competitive by the day, and more people are actually doing content marketing, and then it becomes a necessity almost to promote your pieces of content and your own products by building relationships with relevant sites in your space, and include basically backlink, or try to incentivize them in order to mention your blog post or your product in a relevant page on their site, and ideally receive a backlink. And that whole process, so anything from discovery to getting the direct contact information of the right person, to putting together an email pitch, and also deep personalization, is something that Respond streamlines and automate a lot of the dirty work, so you can focus more on personalization and adding human touch to your emails.
Very cool. I mean, guys, if you're listening in and head to respona.com, you can actually, on the pricing page, there's a very nice comparison, what all sort of other tools you could actually be bundling by just using one solution here. Very interesting. Who would be typically using it? I mean, obviously, SEO driven marketers, like, is that agencies reaching out? Is that individuals, CMOs? Maybe even, like, maybe tell us a little about who would be the users.
Yeah, so I would say about 45% of our customer base is SEO and marketing agencies. Link building is somewhat of I would say, effort that a lot of people like to delegate, because nobody really likes doing that. So a lot of agencies use our platform, but we also have a good mix of other SaaS companies like Pathmonk, or I would say bloggers, people in the education space, pretty much anybody who's doing any level of content marketing or like to get exposure online. Now we focus more on tech, on SEO, but obviously we have customers from other industries that are utilizing Respona in different ways.
Very cool. We had actually have quite a lot of agencies on the show. So I'm curious on the flip side, right? How do they hear about Responder? Like, how do they, what's the channels that they're walking through in order to get started?
Well, we eat our own dog food here. So a big part of it has to do with our own organic traffic. So we launched, I would say, that Respona blog around January last year. And we are receiving anywhere between 30 to 40K in monthly organic traffic. And it's on a hockey step with about, I would say, 35 to 40% month over month growth. Mm-hmm. And that is a combination of quality content, plus obviously we use our own product, Respona, to get the word out. But also SEO is a very tight-knit community. We are in a small niche, so it's referrals and word of mouth is pretty strong. We get a good amount of customer referrals from our top performing customers. So it's all happening on stealth mode because we are in late stage beta. We're actually releasing the latest version of our tool around later this year, around August, September time. So that's really when we're going to kind of push the gas pedal on awareness. But so far, it's been a good mix of organic and plus referrals from our own customers.
Makes sense. I mean, 30K visitors a month for throughout a bit more than a year. It's very impressive. Anything that you've learned? I mean, despite obviously link building, anything that was a major learning for yourself, or something that you can tell others maybe how you've achieved that?
Yeah, so I mean, the traffic, I wouldn't necessarily recommend looking at the numbers and when it comes to just people coming to your website. It's more so in terms of getting, I would say, qualified, relevant people to your site that would potentially, that you can nurture them down the funnel and become paying customers. Now, the way we go about kind of putting that together, I've written a book on this actually. It's called Marketing Strategies we use to bootstrap Visme to 4 million users. It's a long title. Just go ahead and Google Visme Marketing Strategies, that VISME, our parent company. And I explain exactly step by step how we go about identifying certain keywords that have the highest commercial intent, lowest competition, and highest volume, and prioritizing them, sifting through them, and basically writing educational pieces of content, and then eventually going ahead and promoting them. Now that it's quite an extensive process that I explained. It's quite impossible to try to summarize it in 20 minutes that we have. But if you go ahead and take a look at that, and so right now, just to give you some numbers, Visme itself, our parent company, we launched the tool in 2013, 2014. Been around for about 7-8 years, well, 8-9 years now. It's getting anywhere between 2 to 2.5 million organic visitors to our website every single month. To put that in perspective, that's worth about $1.5 to $2 million worth of advertising that we're getting for free, quote unquote. And that's been pretty much done on a smaller scale, obviously on the Respona side, which basically we identify, keywords from the bottom of the funnel, and then kind of work our way to the top of the funnel. And then basically we build a correct site structure, put together quality content. But the real kicker is that we spend about 80% of our resources on content promotion and link building, something that a lot of people don't do and skip. Over 90% of people that I've encountered personally, they only write content and put it on their site and just treat it like a newspaper. Hence why majority of sites don't get any traffic. So the link building side is really what's been moving the needle for us, and not just link building for, a lot. When I say this word, everybody thinks, oh, let me go buy some links or go, pay some sort of agency to a significant number. No, it's just by building relationships with relevant site owners in your space, and then including contextual links on a relevant page on our site. And that's something that's been working the best as far as ROI in any of our channels. Because organic, the beauty of it is that it's evergreen. So anytime you put together a piece of content or a landing page that starts ranking, any new pages you release, it's just added on top. So that gives you that nice little hockey stick growth versus any other channel they might do, say paid ads, PPC, or outbound. The moment you turn off the knob, and the leads stop coming in. So right now, Visme is getting anywhere between, I would say, on average around 25,000 new users, not customers. We're a freemium tool. 25,000 new users every single day without us spending, very little in paid advertising and outbound, but over 95% come directly from organic search.
Very cool. I'm sure like a lot of listeners who are listening to those numbers and the story that you're sharing there are wondering, because you highlighted promotion of the content, like maybe could you break it down for the listeners? What does that mean? Like what are people not doing that they should be doing for the content?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's exactly what Respona does. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a background, Visme, when I was the first marketing hire at Visme, and basically we were putting together the inbound engine and the blog and the site and structure and whatnot, and we realized that through trial and error that content production without link building and promotion is pretty much useless.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we started focusing on promotion, and we're experimenting. There's thousands of different strategies that are out there you can use for content promotion, and some of them work, most of them don't. And we're pretty much doing things manually, so trying to identify opportunities and get into contacts and then manually emailing each one. And it was a very clunky, time-consuming, inefficient process. So I tried actually pretty much any tool you can name in the market, and most of them were either like mass email spamming tools that were just built for just sending 10,000 emails. If you've gotten these emails, hi, I would like to publish a guest post on your site. They're probably using one of our competitors, or there were mainly like a CRM tool that you still had to do all the dirty work yourself manually. It was just a way to kind of keep track of your relationships. So long story short, what we did at Visme was just to put together that entire process into an all-in-one solution. And that was our secret sauce for a while. For about a year and a half, it was our internal software, and it just worked freakishly well. I'm going to tell you how exactly we do this. But then that's how we decided to release Respona as a standalone product. So that's sort of how it came to be as a baby product outside of Visme. Now, anytime we put out a new piece of content at any of our companies, Visme or Respona, we basically identify, so there's a few different techniques we use that work best. And again, these don't mean that it's going to work for everyone, because every industry is obviously different, but it's really worked best for us, what we call, like, for example, the anchor text strategy. So any single one of our blog posts has a target, I would say keyword. So say, for example, I'll put together a blog post about, for example, link building, say, and I go ahead and basically try to identify other blog posts in our space that happen to mention link building somewhere in the body, but the overall topic of that page isn't directly talking about link building, because otherwise there would be a competing post, right? And they're talking about the same thing. That's what a lot of link builders make mistakes, that when they're talking about the same thing, obviously it doesn't make contextual sense for them to include a link to an additional resource. So we identify non-competing posts using advanced operators built into Respona that would ideally benefit from adding a resource as as I would say, another blog post as a backlink in their site. And then we go ahead and find the right person for that blog post. Sometimes it's the writer, if they work at the company. Sometimes it's the content manager or the SEO person, or someone relevant in their marketing team. And then get in touch with them directly, hit them with a personalized pitch and say, hey, Lucas, like, hey, come across your post. You're talking about, different marketing strategies. And I noticed that you mentioned link building somewhere in the body, but then dive deep or elaborate much. And our team just put together a really comprehensive resource on link building strategies. And I think that it would make a nice addition to your post. And if you were kind to give us a mention here, I'm more than happy to do X, Y, Z for you. So that incentive is really what's important and what's in it for them. So for example, I could say, I can get your Respona account on the house for 3 months, or share that post with our 100K social following, or include it in our newsletter that's going to go out next week to 500K subscribers. Get some level of traffic to your site. So that level of incentive is really what's important. And you can get very creative in the type of stuff that you can offer, except for money. Because first of all, that's something that's against Google policy. And plus we use that as an indication of quality. So if a site is asking for money in exchange for a backlink, that to us means that they're also accepting payments from other resources, and they're not just caring about the quality of the content or the sites they're collaborating with, and they're just looking for, an extra buck. So we actually immediately blacklist them, because that's just not sometimes the incentive we offer is actually costing us more than the money they're asking for. But it's just, to us, it means that this is not probably the site that we want to build a relationship with. And then also we try to expand that. We do also a variety of other things, competitor backlinks analysis. We also do some listicle strategies, and there's a variety of things. But then we try to develop that relationship into a guest post, and then kind of go from there. And each link builder on our team on the Respona side is building anywhere, I would say, on an average between 15 to 20 links a week. Mm-hmm. One person. It's about 70 to 80 links a month. which is going to be outrageously expensive if you were to hire an agency to do this for you, because these are contextual links from really high quality sites in your space. So, and so the subscription to Responder really makes makes it a no-brainer. So hence why we decided to release it as a standalone product in the first place.
Awesome. Very, very interesting, especially for Responder. Just to wrap up that topic, I mean, we did a deeper look now into link building. Any other SEO strategies that you could point out for people that, because it's very impressive, I think, for a lot of people out there who are trying to get from 0 to 30K isn't an easy step for many people out there. So anything else that, to wrap that up, anything else that you could recommend?
Oh, there's a ton. It all comes down to, first of all, how much resources you have on hand. A lot of people don't have the network writers and editors and designers and to put together quality, well-researched content, which is fine. I mean, there's tons of other things you can do to get the word out and get backlinks to your site. For example, one of the things that you can do easily is podcasts, like what I'm doing right now. That's normally free advertising to a niche audience. Your audience is probably interested in a solution like ours. And plus, you're also going to include links to our website in the show notes. So that's a backlink to our site right there. And Responder, for example, allows you to identify the right podcast opportunities and gives you the email addresses to reach out and pitch yourself to go on as a guest. So that's something that doesn't require any content, doesn't require much except for knowledge, obviously. There's tons of other things. For example, there's a very simple strategy called Listicle Strategy. So anytime, for example, for PathMonk, or actually another easier thing is called a competitor backlink strategy. So you can identify some of the top competitors of yours. For example, I see here like check.ai. I'm not sure whether these are necessary competitors. I'm just looking it off Ahrefs. So you can look them up through Ahrefs or SEMrush. You can exactly see where your competitors have been mentioned in, or just use Responder operators to find some of these mentions of your competitors, and you can reach out to the responsible person for that site and offer them a free subscription to your tool if they were kind to also add you to the resource. I mean, I can keep on going on and on. There's tons of little dirty work that you could do at the very bottom of the funnel that bears fruit pretty rapidly, but then over time, you're obviously going to run out of these opportunities at some point. So it's always best to start putting together a content strategy. So we publish anywhere between 4 to 5 pieces a month, and focus on getting those content pieces rankings for that specific keyword. So there's a constant flow of outreach that is done over at Visme and Responder, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
Very cool. You mentioned Listicle Strategy. For everybody who hasn't heard that, just a 1-sentence summary before we move on.
Oh, Listicle Strategy is just reaching out to post data, for example, like best website conversion tools or best tools for optimizing your conversions. And they've mentioned, for example, Hotjar and some other tools. And they obviously didn't mention PathMonk. So it's a new software. So I want to reach out to every single one of them. So these are list posts that you can easily reach out to, have a relevant pitch, and offer them an incentive to include PathMonk on that list. And that's what we call a listicle strategy.
Very, very cool. I mean, I think I really love how we merged learning about your product and actually, learning, what is some great strategies for people out there to do. One thing that is interesting though for me is, we bring out tons of traffic to the website. How do you think about, the strength of the website, despite SEO, right? Bringing people there is one, but converting them as the other. Like, how do you think about conversions at the very moment?
Okay, so conversion optimization isn't really my field of expertise. I normally, obviously, we do the basics, try to keep the commitment low. Haven't really done much, to be honest with you, that I could provide any sort of interesting insights per se. That is probably something that's right up your alley. So I'm very interested in checking out PathMonk in particular, because it was a very interesting product. Though I feel like for PathMonk to be a relevant tool, you need to bring in some level of traffic in the first place to your website to be able to then convert them into leads and customers. So that first piece is really where our focus is right now at the moment, but definitely something that even 1%, for example, even 0.5% difference on the Visme side makes a huge difference, because we're getting millions of people to our website every month.
Yep, makes a whole lot of sense. I would love to switch gears, right? And learn about you personally a little bit, because we've been deep diving into, SEO. We've been deep diving into Respona. I would be curious, right? With all the content that is out there, on SEO related topics, how do you filter? Like, how do you decide what to read, what to ignore? Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because, there's tons of stuff out there on SEO.
Oh, I see. So personally, what I read and not
Yeah, and how do
what
you
we
filter?
produce.
Yeah.
Got it. So there are a few, people that I respect in the industry that I've personally learned a ton from. One of them being Rand Fishkin, CEO of Moz. Just read whatever he puts out. It's good. That I can guarantee. There are a few other folks like Brian Dean of Backlink. Ahrefs team puts together really good pieces of content on their blog. Obviously, the Respona blog, that's the best. But normally, once you start learning about the industry, and then once you're in it for a few years, a lot of things become repetitive. So right now, what I personally focus on is just searching the journal, understanding some of the algorithm updates and some of the more technical side of things, since the basics of SEO are quite simple. You need to put together quality content and promote it. That's it. And I mean, there's obviously more to it, but once you get a hang of things, then it's not rocket science. It's just a matter of understanding, keeping yourself up to date, and learning about the new strategies that come, and a level of creativity. That's all.
Very cool. Since we're slowly coming to an end of the interview, would love to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Let's do it.
Very good. What's the last book that you read?
Oh, I'm actually finishing up A Promised Land by Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm. What's the one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
SEO.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you want to have fixed for your role today?
Would you rephrase that question for me?
Sure. There's no boundaries in technology anymore. Anything can happen. You have a magic stick. What's the one thing you want to have fixed for your role?
So you mean so that I don't have to do it myself? Somebody else would do it?
Yeah.
Answering emails.
Answering emails. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
I would say GDPR. It's a somewhat of a pain in the neck, especially in the email space. But
all the best from Europe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, it's worse even in Europe. In the States, still pretty relaxed, but.
Very good. And I would actually be curious, if today would be your very first day, right, working on Respona, what's the one advice that you would give yourself?
Keep things simple. I have a tendency to try to do a lot of things at the same time. And one thing I've learned is that let's just start from bare minimum, do it really well, and then over time expand. Something that my co-founder keeps telling me, and I've come to that realization that is somewhat true. And keeping things simple is very important. Just start from very, very bare minimum and not try to do everything at the same time, because then you just stop with a mediocre product or with a mediocre approach to anything. So starting simple, growing over time.
Very cool, Farzad. I really appreciate that you took the time to be guest on Pathwing Presents with us today. I want to give you the last word. If everybody or the people listening would be forgetting what we discussed about Respona, what's the one thing that they should remember?
If you want to promote yourself online, if you have a product, educational piece, you have a blog, anything that you have that want people online to know about it, you're probably gonna need to respond for that.
Thanks a lot. Perfect. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathwing Presents.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.